The news that came out over the weekend, I guess it was just yesterday, Secretary Rubio was on CBS News, and an incredible moment happened with Margaret Brennan. Another moment. I know you may say, hey, is this a replay? Is this what we're talking about back from the Vance days? No. This is brand new. And this was a conversation between Marco Rubio, again, and Margaret Brennan. She's talking about, if you hear it well, they can give some context before we actually play the clip. She's talking about J.D. Vance making an appearance in Germany at a conference.
That's right. He was at the Munich Security Conference, and he had strong words, actually, for European leaders in attendance, blasting them for censorship, limiting of free speech, and really saying that there was a threat from within, not external actors, but a threat from within against the shared values that America has with Europe.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values shared with the United States of America.
And that got a lot of pushback from more of the progressives within European society. And then Margaret Brennan was asking Secretary Rubio his thoughts on this.
And she gives sort of a leading question, a question to try to, almost a gotcha moment, to try to get some sort of stumbling. But the problem with the press right now is they really don't know the facts. They really don't know what they're talking about. And I think it's very, very clear that Margaret Brennan from Face the Nation maybe didn't spend a whole lot of time in social studies, didn't spend a whole lot of time in history class, because we're talking about things that are under 100 years old. This was happening in many people that are still alive's generation. So let's hear her thoughts on Germany, and then you get to hear Secretary Rubio's response.
He was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
Yeah, not an accurate reflection of history, as again she claims that free speech is what was weaponized, Will, to conduct the genocide of Jews during the Holocaust in Nazi Germany. The foundation of it, not exactly accurate. The free speech is where things land. And of course, again, trying to tie whatever the conservatives are doing in America. I feel like the Nazi term had finally calmed down, and now we clearly see it being rigged back up.
That's right. They're trying to find any way they can to use this as slander against the administration. But you also start to think, why is someone who enjoys the freedom of the press under our Constitution going after the freedom of speech that's in the very same amendment under the Bill of Rights that protects her job? Allegedly, free speech has almost now become a euphemism for conservative speech.
Yeah. They don't speech.
Right. Yeah. They don't like the fact that people can have a different opinion than them. So they think the true free speech is only if you fit within their ideology. And they call everything else free speech that they don't like because they see it as dangerous, harmful to their ideology, when instead of having robust discussion about differences and moving forward, you have them just blasting it and then try to spin up a weird tale that free speech, which they mean hateful speech, is what caused genocide in the Holocaust. But in reality, there was no free speech. There was no free press in Nazi Germany.
You have Margaret Brennan, probably the most time she's been said on any of one's broadcast, just due to just a few weeks ago. Of course, we all remember the moment with J.D. Vance that happened where J.D. Vance kind of schooled her on what was going on in terms of the vetting process.
That's right. And so she is getting a lot of eyeballs. I don't know how many people watch Face the Nation when it's on the Sunday shows anymore.
It's on in a lot of hospitals. It's on in a lot of waiting rooms. I feel like it's just there.
But she is getting this attention because it clearly seems like she has some sort of resentment against J.D. Vance, probably back to the comment where he said, "I don't really care, Margaret." And what we see here, though, is a rewriting of history, a elitist, liberal-minded media that is no longer curious about truth. They are only concerned about pushing an agenda. And that's where it gets very dangerous, in my opinion, because under the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Typically, in a freedom-minded world, the freedom of speech of the citizens and the freedom of the press you can't separate. They're in the same clause under the First Amendment. However, our media, the mainstream media, the corporate media, is not acting like a free press. They are only parroting narratives that make progressives in this country happy. And so when it gets to things like a narrative about Nazism that they've come up with ever since the election, they're not going to let that go. So it should seem counterproductive for her to try to make claims like free speech gave rise to the Holocaust, when in reality, that she should be saying we need more speech to counteract hateful, dangerous speech, as those of us that are freedom-loving and First Amendment-loving Americans and organizations like the ACLJ that fight to protect the freedom of speech in the First Amendment. That's what we believe, but clearly not the media.
Jeff Balaban's joining us. You know him on this broadcast, the head of ACLJ Jerusalem, but Jeff was the senior vice president at CBS and head of communications of CBS News. So someone who knows the insides of what happens in these kind of news bureaus and how this is all taken. Jeff, I'd love to get your thoughts.
Well, it's not as though CBS News was ever a right-wing news organization. Even when I was there, CBS News leaned left, and I would say leaned profoundly left. But what's happened since then, I know that they really, like many places in corporate America, they imported what's a DEI mentality. And a colleague of mine who was also at CBS at the time I was there has written about this, because he was there after I left, that things went from bad to much, much worse. And on this specific issue, let me be very clear. It's not only that it wasn't free speech, it was worse than that. What Brennan's really showing is the danger of a media that aligns too closely to a political agenda.
We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Secular program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.